In February 1st of 2020, Fauci and a group of scientists got together, both by phone call, Zoom, Skype, and they have a meeting. And in that meeting, they all conclude, and in Fauci's word, he writes the summary of the meeting. He says, we've looked at the genetic sequence of the virus. It looks manipulated. It looks like it's been manipulated purposely in a lab to make it more infectious for humans. And we're doubly worried because we know that lab in Wuhan does gain of function research. Fast forward a year later, publicly to me, he denies fervently that there's any kind that has ever funded gain of function in Wuhan. So what he says in private is the opposite of what he's saying in public. And this went on throughout the spring of 2020. And then it turns out the scientists that are organizing many of these things are actually the scientists that were funding the lab in Wuhan. They actually have a direct conflict of interest because they are the ones that will be culpable. Same with Anthony Fauci. Why is he so wedded to trying to make you believe it came from the animal kingdom and not the lab? Because he funded the lab. If it comes out that he funded the lab and that that's where the pandemic arose, there's a certain amount of culpability he has for the pandemic. So they're doing everything they can to escape any kind of attachment to that money or to gain of function because it attaches guilt for the pandemic to them.
What would you say is the most surprising thing that you found? And I mean, you have a lot of skepticism about how all these systems work, but what would you say is the most surprising thing?
How extensive the cover-up was. It wasn't just Anthony Fauci and a few scientists. You know, we finally got Democrats to agree unanimously in the Senate and in the House to declassify all the COVID documents and for Biden to reveal them. Since that, we've gotten 0 pieces of information from Biden. Most of the stuff was already declassified. They are hiding declassified material. HHS and NIH have been more secretive and hiding more stuff than the CIA does. We've had more forthcoming meetings with the CIA and the FBI and the Department of Energy than HHS. We've been asking for documents, and they'll send us a 250-page document with everything redacted. We finally got the Democrat chairman, Peters, of the Homeland Security to sign letters, and he signed letters 4 months ago, and we've still got no documents. So this is really a massive cover-up. One of the colossal things that Fauci did that led to all of this is that Fauci decided not to have the safety committee look at this. They went around the safety committee. The money goes to Wuhan, and the safety committee never reviewed it. And he says, well, I had dozens of scientists up and down who told me it wasn't gain of function. Well, then we should see the minutes of those meetings where the discussion happened. I wanted to see the discussion over, was it safe or unsafe to send this money to Wuhan? And if he says all my scientists told me it wasn't, I want to see the dialogue. I want to see the arguments the scientists made for why we should have been doing this dangerous research in a totalitarian country in a lab that was of a lower safety level than almost every scientist in the world agrees they shouldn't have been doing it there. And then to make matters worse, when it finally happens, when the accident happens, you know, China, of course, covers all of it up and won't admit to anything. It took them 3 months to admit that there was a contagion. And even then they said it wasn't going people to people for another 2 weeks until they couldn't deny that. So at every step of the way, there's been a cover up that began in China. But the surprising thing was how extensive it is in our country and how our country circled the wagons to prevent knowledge, much as they do in a totalitarian country like China.